Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC Live. We like to call these things episodes because we think we have a consistent theme across all the webinars we do at DABCC, and that is we like to make these things an audience participation project. We really want you guys throughout this webinar and throughout any webinar we do to ask questions, to participate in it. Otherwise, we'll just do videos with these guys and you can watch them on demand, which is great. But you know what? We have some great people here today that I'll introduce here in a second, and they're ready to take your questions. So please, as we go through this, as they're presenting their information, as they're showing off the demo, as they're, we're going through this webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar piece, the questions piece within GoToWebinar, and ask your questions, and I will answer them, or I won't answer them. Our guests will answer them as it's appropriate. So we're not going to wait till the very end when it's out of context. We're going to do it right when you ask them, or within a couple minutes. So that's the most important piece about that, and that's our format, and we're going to stick to it. So I hope you guys like that. On that note, I'm really excited to have Uptime Software with us today because they make a really neat product, and that's that does one of the most important things I see, or that I want, especially when evaluating products. But when getting things up and running, is that you can install this in less than 15 minutes. They're going to talk about that today and show you off the features. And it's not just you think to yourself, oh, I can do it in 15 minutes, must be simple. Far from it. So I don't want to steal these guys' thunder, but those are the two, some of the things I really, really love about these guys. And they make just a great product. So on that note, I'm very excited to have Uptime Software. And we have two gentlemen from Uptime with us. We have Phil Bidascalou with us, and he's their CEO, and he's going to do the introduction in a few slides for you, sort of give you some understanding of the company and the product. And then we're going to bring on Ken Chung who is a solution architect. He's an engineer. So we're going to bring him on, and he's going to show it off and dive deep and ask all your technical questions. Or answer all your technical questions. He's not going to ask any questions. He might ask you a question. Lord knows. But on that note, thank you guys again for coming, and let's go ahead and turn this over to Phil, and let's get going. Sound good? Okay. Phil, it's all yours.
Thank you, Doug. And again, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode and sharing your time with us today. I'm really proud and excited to present both Uptime Software and our IT infrastructure monitoring product called Uptime. By way of introduction, I'd like to give you a little bit of background. Certainly, as Doug pointed out, enterprise-level monitoring in less than 15 minutes is not a fantasy. In fact, it's a reality. We have customers, joining our client base every day that experience tremendous value in monitoring IT infrastructure, services, and applications. But let me give you a little bit of background and context here. We looked at the systems management market a few years ago, and we really challenged ourselves. And the challenge was this: how do we take something that's messy? It's messy, that requires traditionally very specialized skills and training, and make it simple so that the average IT user or manager could get immediate value and improve their uptime. So going back a few years ago, that was kind of hard to do. And, today, I'm proud to say that we have made enterprise monitoring easy. And, the fact is, and I test every version of the product myself, you can actually install Uptime, as Ken's going to demonstrate, in about 5 minutes. And in 15, you can actually be doing basic health monitoring of apps and services running on a small pool of servers. And I'll expand a little bit about, the implications in a larger environment. But this is something that we do today. Let me give you a little bit of background in terms of some of the challenges that our customers face. And I know, you're looking at what we call the mid-enterprise, but really any size IT enterprise, whether you have 50 servers or 2,500, which, by the way, is sort of the range that we define for mid-market, they're facing specific challenges today. And I'm going to kind of group these 6 challenges or phenomena that we're seeing into 3 areas. Let's focus first on virtualization and cloud at the top of the circle. Certainly all companies are looking to take advantage of the economies of scale and the opportunities that come from being able to virtualize physical systems into virtual machines. And now with the adoption of cloud and the availability of cloud, both in SaaS types of services, you can really start to become more nimble and really introduce better economies when monitoring your infrastructure. But these do present some specific challenges. In a large organization, typically you'll find specialists that only focus on virtualization or have dedicated jobs that can go out and research cloud. But let's face it, in the smaller or the mid-sized companies, that's simply not the case. And, the challenge here that we're seeing is one of skill sets. So any tools that, look at monitoring or management in the cloud, they have to be readily, learnable, and deployable by your average person. So that's a challenge in itself. Looking at the left side of the circle, outsourcing and outage avoidance. So what's really going on here? I mean, outsourcing goes on everywhere. Larger companies, a little more complex to do. But in the mid-sized enterprise, the business users, the CEOs are looking really hard at the ongoing cost of IT. And in fact, they're looking at it and asking themselves, do we need to have our own staff or can we outsource? So what's the challenge here? Well, the real challenge is for the IT managers and the system administrators, they have to prove their value. And they have to be able to do that by showing very concrete numbers, service levels, and reports that they can demonstrate why they're actually adding value to the business. So when we talk about outage avoidance, really what we're saying is, yeah, you have to now start avoiding outages in the first place and demonstrating to management, what is the value of keeping IT in-house. And, so there's a real challenge there in doing that. And we know that simply because customers call us and say all the time, hey, my managers all of a sudden need to see service level agreement reports. How can you guys help us? So that's a key challenge, and it's very, very acute in the mid-enterprise. And finally, towards the bottom of that circle, we see budgets and skills. Well, as we know, everyone's always looking to do more with less. And even though that's happening in all size companies, the mid-enterprise is where it really, really comes into play these days. And again, mid-enterprise, I'm talking about, a sweet spot of 50 to 2,500 servers. So that's a case where you generally have generalists. And they can't afford to have specialists in every area. So this makes it challenging to monitor a plethora of technologies that typically will exist in this size of organization. And cost. Anything that happens in IT has to be, value-oriented, and you can't afford to go out and buy really, really expensive tools. So these kind of three challenges really, really, are coming more into play, specifically in this economic climate. So that's kind of the framework for the market, or what we call the sweet spot that we play into. So what is Uptime? Well, from a product perspective, I'm not going to read off everything you're seeing here, but really our product allows you to do deep monitoring to get really granular metrics. If you need to manage multiple technologies, it allows you to tie them all together in a single dashboard. So I'm talking about physical, virtual, and cloud-based resources. So it's a tool that really allows you to see everything without going out and buying multiple tools or integrating them together. And finally, the real value that comes out of it is being able to avoid outages before they occur, to avoid downtime, because it's not an option anymore to have downtime in any size organization. So we've put together a single tool that allows you to encapsulate all these two things. And the real proof of that is that we now have, over 700 customers in 32 countries. And, I'm actually proud to say, and I know this sounds a little strange, we've never met the majority of them. So if you think about what that means is our tool is really usable, it's self-deployable, you don't need to send a team of engineers on site to do it. So we're talking about something that traditionally was really hard to do, and we've made it easy. Let me drill down a little bit and define what I mean by deep monitoring. If you look at the marketplace today, you'll find two kinds of tools by and large. You'll find a lot of low-cost, maybe even freeware, open-source type solutions that will tell you sort of red light, green light, hey, something's up or something's down, but it doesn't help you find the root cause of a problem. And, you'll find very, very expensive large frameworks from, the big four vendors out there. I won't name who they are, but you can probably guess who they are, that are extremely complicated pieces of software that actually give you too much. So we looked at this problem and we said, well, really what customers need is they need a way to go from the stage of saying, hey, I know I have a problem, to finding it and finding it very quickly. And in order to do that, you do need granular, detailed metrics that can dig inside the physical resources of the machine, whether it's CPU, memory, I/O, and really help you pinpoint, am I having a server problem? Is it a network problem? Is it an application problem? So you need deep metrics. The other thing that most customers want is they want to be able to procure software in an easy way. And what I mean by that is, you call up your vendor, and then they ask you a gazillion questions about how many of this do you have, how many of that, and meanwhile an hour has gone by and you have no idea what it costs. Well, we kind of solve that problem by basing our pricing on a very simple model. You simply count the number of bare metal physical systems you have, and we have a price structure based on that. So when you're virtualizing, you don't need to worry about how many virtual machines or how many instances, because in a dynamic environment, you're not going to know to begin with, especially once you get into cloud type of environments where the number of machines you have can be changing and you don't even know what it is. So our pricing is very simple and our customers love that. And then finally, you want a tool that you can deploy. And now we're getting into a point here where we're saying, well, you can deploy in less than a day. Well, in a day, you can deploy hundreds of machines. We have some customers that have rolled out uptime to 500 servers in a day to 2 days over a weekend. So that's kind of not traditional in the systems management framework when you look at tools that have a lot of powerful reports and metrics like Outage. So tying everything together, and again, we say simple management, physical, virtual, and cloud. Well, maybe not everyone is out there doing cloud, but, I doubt there's anyone out there in the audience or any companies that have 50-plus servers to thousands that don't have virtual machines. I mean, it's just the fact that this market segment is virtualizing more aggressively than the ultra-large companies, simply to take advantage of the economies of scale. But you don't want to have tool soup. You don't want to have to buy one tool for virtual, one for cloud, one for physical, and then somehow cut and paste the data outside of reports. You want one tool, one dashboard you can go to get your combined consolidated metrics. And that's what we do, and we do it very simply. You don't have to be an IT user to use our product. You could be a vice president of a business unit. You're given a URL. You can say, I want to see all my capacity across my entire enterprise, or I want to see the availability of our email application. You can do that. You don't have to be a technologist to use this tool. So, and Ken's going to get into this more in the demo, but we do offer deep capabilities when it comes to understanding what's going on in your virtual environment, whether that's how many virtual machines you have out there, to the state that they're in. And I'm not going to steal his thunder, but there's a lot of complex issues that come up when you're managing virtual environments. One very simple one that we saw, and Gartner talked about this not long ago, was the fact that a lot of people are deploying hardware for virtual machines, but they're underutilized because they don't have a simple way to see what percentage of my virtual infrastructure is even being used. Can I put more virtual machines on the system? So a lot of this is because typically you need multiple tools to get all this detail. Well, we make it very easy to solve that problem. And finally, we talk about mid-enterprise, but really, when you look at a business that might have 5 to 10 data centers across the globe, you don't want to have to browse to multiple systems to see how they're doing. We have what's called multi-data center capability. So in real time, you can be rolling up capacity and availability metrics for all your applications, regardless of where they're running, regardless of what data centers they're spanning. So, and we do that across multiple platforms. So whether you're monitoring, Windows or Linux or just about any flavor of Unix, we can tie it all together. So the last slide I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to Ken is outage avoidance and what we call automated healing. If you look down at the chart, sort of at the far right, you'll see break fix. And this is, when you look at IT maturity, this is where most organizations start. And really break fix is really a reactive mode to operate in. It really means that when something breaks or a red light pops up, you react to it and you fix it. But you're really not doing anything to help avoid, outages. So, typically customers that we've seen that deploy Uptime are usually often very much in this state. And what our tool does, and it helps you progress levels of IT maturity, because ultimately where you want to be is in a place where your monitoring tool is not only telling you what problems you have, but it's actually taking proactive action to help you avoid those outages in the first place. We see customers usually evolve from a break-fix sort of reactive operation to one where they're starting to think about things like capacity planning. Well, what's the impact of that, or the ramification of that is that helps you figure out how much you should be spending on your IT infrastructure. Are you spending enough on hardware? When your CFO asks you why you need to spend another $500,000 or $1 million on hardware, do you have any kind of data to back up why you think you need it? So Uptime will produce that kind of data for you in very comprehensive, easy to digest format that even a CFO can understand. And finally, through the more power capabilities of Uptime, you can actually automate fixes. So it can understand things like, hey, I've seen this scenario before. When I start running out of memory, I want to do this. Or when this application goes down, I want to switch over to this. And really, that's when we start getting into the benefits of outage avoidance and automated healing. So your monitoring system is now really improving your uptime. And that's where we like to see customers go. And usually, we see them deploy Uptime and watch them go through this progression very, very quickly. So ultimately, these are the real key benefits of Uptime. It's going to help you solve really specific challenges that are relevant today and that are getting more so with kind of the perfect storm that's being created by virtualization and cloud monitoring opportunities, and also lets you support the business in a very, very effective way and in a very affordable way. So that's it. I want to thank you for following it so far, and I think Ken has a very interesting demo. One other thing I will suggest at the end of this demo is, I know a lot of software vendors make a lot of claims, and we're the kind of company that stands behind this. So I really encourage you to go to uptimesoftware.com, download a copy of our product, and check it out, because I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised. Ken, over to you.
Thanks for that, Phil. As Doug said, I'm the engineer, so I'm here to show you that everything that Phil has talked about for the vision of the product is actually real. So this is an instance of Uptime that I'm just going to log into, and part of the beauty of Uptime is that it's all web-based. So that's part of the ease of use and ease of deployment model. You don't have thick clients to install. You don't have to worry about updating software on workstations. And as well, as part of that ease of use, the system automatically integrates into things like LDAP and Active Directory, all of the authentication mechanisms that you're using across the enterprise to manage your physical and virtual infrastructure. So to introduce our product, what I'm going to do is start at the 40,000-foot view, and we're actually going to walk through the different aggregate views that we can use to view our entire data center, and we are going to be drilling down into our virtual infrastructure as well in about 5 minutes. So here, the first screen that we're going to start on is what we call Global Scan, or our entire data center availability view. So all of the metrics across all of our infrastructure, physical, virtual, or cloud, are flowing into this console. So regardless of operating system or where anything resides, the metrics can range from data center temperature and humidity, all the way up into performance metrics, all the way across hypervisor metrics, and all the way into any kind of custom metrics you want to add to the system as well. Uptime instantly aggregates that in a way that everyone in your organization can understand, from the help desk all the way up to the CEO. Green, yellow, red, OK warning critical. We've got maintenance windows for everything that's happening in your enterprise. And then unknown state, which talks to our ability to identify outages in the infrastructure at their source. So we don't want to generate seas of alerts. We want to be able to say, well, if a network switches down, generate one alert to your network engineering team, not 31 for all the edge devices, not 300 for the servers, and certainly not 3,000 to an engineer's BlackBerry for all the services that sit behind that. So we'll drill into that a little bit more as we go along. And of course, in a complex data center environment that you're facing now with physical virtual cloud, you want to have ways to easily organize that infrastructure. So Uptime breaks out your classification of systems into two unique paradigms. You've got the groups, which is a hierarchy or true roll-up of all of your infrastructure. And we've also got the views, which allow you to create loosely coupled groupings of infrastructure. So if we want to say worldwide virtualization infrastructure, or we want to say worldwide firewall infrastructure, we can use these two concepts to neatly classify everything. And we're going to see how this enables us to do 3-click reporting across the entire enterprise without any of the traditional headache of doing SQL queries or any of that stuff. So availability is one of the views you guys definitely want to get a handle across your data center, but you also want to get capacity across your physical virtual cloud. And as Doug said, typically we don't ask questions, but here's a question for you guys to chomp on. How do you currently get your CPU, memory, disk busy, disk capacity, and network I/O across all of your different platforms, physical virtual cloud, aggregated into a single screen? So that's exactly what I'm showing you right now. We've got the rolling 15-minute aggregate view across all of our data centers, and we've got the rolling 24-hour view with the low watermark, the high watermark, and the average, as well as a 24-hour telemetry so that we can see if we're running in an out-of-band time where things are just totally going crazy. We can see that as well. And again, our focus on technology. We're a multi-platform, heterogeneous product with very high performance. I can always drill from the high level to the low level. And our focus on that capability means that this screen can be rendered on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your Nexus One, or on a 55-inch plasma to support your NOC. Now, another one of the views that I want to show you at the very high level before we start drilling down is the all-element screen. And it really ties into what Phil was talking about in terms of making sure that you don't get locked into a vendor that creates operating systems or creates hardware platforms. That's not what Uptime's about. We're partnered with everyone. So regardless of which virtualization technology or which physical platforms you're choosing, you know that Uptime's going to be there with you the whole way as you go up that maturity scale that Phil was talking about. This is a product that you invest once and stays with you. And we're definitely going to talk about that. So you can see that all of the major physical platform vendors are represented here very clearly. And I'm very confident that if I drill down on any of these, whether I want to do AIXL parts, Solaris zones and containers, HPUX, Novell, Enterprise Linux, or of course VMware, which we're going to talk a little bit about here today, that I'm going to get the same kind of deep metrics capability and deep analysis that's not only going to be to do ad hoc analysis, but that's driving our automated alerts and automated healing actions. So just a quick teaser before we start drilling down. We are going to be talking about the vision that Phil was talking about, which is, hey, this is a complex stack of software and hardware that we've got in the data center, including our virtualization stack. How do we relate all of the metrics that we're going to be able to collect to what users actually care about, which is application services, right? Virtualization allows us to be more nimble, allows us to allocate our resources better, allows us to deploy faster. But at the end of the day, the users don't really care about that. They're just going to call you and say, well, the website's down or the website's not working. So how do we drill through that? How do we use that? How do we identify whether it's a hypervisor problem or a database that's causing that problem? We'll be talking about that shortly as well. And of course, as part of IT and the grand vision and the challenges that Phil was talking about, being able to reliably report our performance to our management and to our stakeholders at an SLA level without doing 400 hours of reporting, aggregating multiple platform data together in an Excel spreadsheet. We want to be able to just have a screen that instantly displays that accountability, allows me to do single click reporting against service level objectives, and we're going to talk about that as well. But before we can get to these very powerful capabilities and higher order, more mature, much more advanced technologies that are used to achieve maturity, we definitely want to start drilling down and understand how Uptime helps us break through physical and virtual environments really easily. So let's start to do that. What I'm going to do is actually drill right into a physical server. Now, in this case, it happens to be running the VMware operating system, right, or ESX operating system. Now, in this case, as with all physical servers, I can get instant access to any metrics running on this box. So not only can we get access to that metric in a really low number of clicks to see what the box is doing, but we know that this is driving automated healing actions as well. Now, in this case, we've got an ESX box, and if I want to see CPU utilization in 3 clicks, I can certainly do that. I can, in fact, just not only put the stuff on the screen, Uptime's focus on allowing you to analyze the data quickly on anything, actually, on any element, allows me to do things like single-click zoom. So I can get right into the data, get right into the granular time series, and instantly simplify or enhance the graph so that I can communicate this information. So regardless of virtual physical platform, at the end of the day, when we get alerted, we want to be able to drill into the problem, find the issue, and communicate that issue either to our executives through business presentations, PowerPoints, Word documents, or actually communicate this to our engineers at the ground level, hit send, have our email generate, and be able to tell people, hey, it's this environment, go fix it, here's the problem. Now, the interesting thing about Uptime is we give you a huge variety of output formats for you to visualize in meetings, as well as instant access to trending and other baselining capabilities, which I'll talk more about, so that we can take the conversation away from, well, I think we did something on our systems, to, for sure, this is what we did 6 months ago. We can see an upwards trend in CPU utilization. This is what we're going to have to do about it. Now, in the case of virtualization, we don't just want to be able to break out physical box metrics, because as we know, virtualization is the next generation data center. We want to be able to do a breakout of how the physical frame itself is being used from a resource perspective. So Uptime allows you, from that single pane of glass, to immediately drill down and say, well, how are those workloads actually impacting the aggregate utilization of the frame? Because we're throwing workloads at this box, right? And so in this stacked graph, we can do simple things like see if an instance is hogging CPU utilization or is under-provisioned on the wrong box for affinity. But we can do even more cool things, and this is just our first level virtualization metrics we're talking about. Do things like analyze provisioning. So as you guys all know, with virtualization kind of coming into the data center, part of the challenge has been with physical sprawl turning into a virtual sprawl problem. And that's because as our business stakeholders start to understand that with the flick of a switch, we can turn on a virtual server, they're going to ask you for more and more resources. They're going to know the right things to say. Say things like, this is a highly visible enterprise application. We need 32 gigs of RAM, or it won't be supported by the vendor. And, in those situations, what we have to be able to do is go into the tool and validate those claims 3 months or 6 months down the road. I mean, we've already done our calculations, and we know that that's been over-provisioned. So we can go in and validate those claims. So what we'll do is apply our threshold to the virtual instance and immediately be able to zoom in and say to our stakeholder, look, guys, you said we needed 32 gigs of statically assigned RAM to these virtual instances, and immediately I can say, well, the peak utilization over your 6 months was, less than half a gig. That's not free memory, it's shared resource. We need to take that back, put it into the pool, and be able to increase our virtual density, which is really speaking to our efficiency. Now, even these kind of first-level use cases are extremely important, but I have some level 2 and level 3 use cases to show you in just a second. And the question is, how are you doing this today? But more importantly, for those of you guys who are looking at tools, Uptime is deeply partnered with VMware, and we make sure that we get the metrics through the API. So the way we aggregate these metrics takes into account instance motion and makes sure that we get the metrics the way that VMware tells us we should do it. We don't do it from an agent view. We don't scrape metrics from a console. As most of you are aware now with your virtualization projects, getting metrics in the context of instance motion and ensuring those metrics are clean without any of the time shift problems that you've seen in other products is very, very important, and Uptime definitely gives you those capabilities. Now, where you want to take a step further, once you know that the data is clean, is we know that as we increase density, what we want to understand is inter-instance contention. That's the next level, or level 2, which means, well, if we have 50 VDIs on a box, and 2 of them are using too much resources or are contending for CPU, we want to be proactively notified of that. We want to understand the deeper virtualization metrics like percent ready, which articulate when images are fighting for resources on the box, and you have to proactively manage that, move images around, and get appropriate density going. Now, Uptime with our latest release, the 5.3, has actually taken our virtualization metrics to the next level as part of our roadmap towards total virtualization synchronization. What we've got here is the ability to actually get metrics for advanced hypervisor troubleshooting. So when I talk about that, we're talking about things like inactive VMs that are zombied on the memory side. We're talking about memory targets, swapping in and out. So hypervisor is very powerful for allowing us to redeploy operating systems, but it's very advanced in the way it manages those operating systems and understanding when we've under-provisioned things and need to intervene, very important. Also, with the merging of virtualization and hardware, sometimes when you're having problems at the application level, it's hard to identify whether we're having a problem at the operating system level, at the application level, at the hypervisor level, or actually at the disk subsystem level. Here are the key metrics that VMware would ask you about if you called them for support on an application and said that it was experiencing latency only in the virtual environment. So you could tell them exactly all of the disk level resets, where it was happening, and they'd be able to instantly triage that and escalate to their development queue as required. So this is the kind of visibility we want, and we want to be able to combine these deep hypervisor metrics with all of the standard data center metrics that drive our application. So, virtualization is one slice of the data center, and so Uptime allows you to aggregate that slice, the newest slice of the data center, with all of these other metrics that I'm going to show you right here. So performance of our physical platforms, performance of our operating systems, performance of the authentication services that our applications depend on, performance of databases, web front ends, middleware, hypervisor, email systems, network services, network devices, and hundreds of other services that you can cover for free through our plugin architecture by downloading them directly from our website. The key point being here is that no single aspect of the data center should be left out. If you think about it as being someone's body, you want to get those probes in across the entire spectrum of what sits between your users and their data so that when something goes wrong, we don't point fingers and say it's the network guy, it's the hypervisor, it's database. We know exactly what's happening. So in about 2 minutes, I'm going to show you how powerful our application view is when it comes to these metrics. Now, I want to just quickly show you guys something. We've shown you detailed hypervisor metrics. Uptime's not just detailed on that. We drill into super detail even on things like database platforms. So it's not green light, red light is the database up, down. This is performance-oriented. We know exactly why the database might be underperforming or out, which is critical to helping you laser guide your teams to lower mean time to repair. Now, one of the things I want to do is make real the concept of healing actions. So Phil's been telling you about healing actions, and I'm showing you about data collection. How do we bridge the gap between these thresholds that we can easily set, the data that we can easily save to do all of that ad hoc analysis that we talked about, and the concept of alerting and action profiles? Well, alerting is really a 3-click affair in Uptime. Okay, being able to automate your escalations, notifying the right people at the right time is as simple as who should get the alert, integrated into Active Directory groups, how the alert should be delivered, and what should be in that alert as a custom format. Because we want to make sure that when we notify people, everything makes sense. All the data coming back from the Uptime monitoring solution, whether it be virtual or not, is available for that operator to do something. But where everything takes a whole new level of capability, or takes you to the next level, is the ability to run what we call action profiles or automated healing scripts. So in response to any of those thresholds, we can interact with services, restart them, do advanced logging, do all the things that we would want to do if human beings aren't reacting, but we can also, with the latest version of Uptime, interact directly with things like vSphere, vCenter Orchestrator, and dynamically reconfigure your virtual infrastructure. So this is a unique capability to Uptime, and what we can do is not just dynamically reconfigure individual virtual machines and spawn them up or down. We can actually do full business policy type of automation. So if you're running out of capacity inside of your data center today because too many users are logging in, Uptime as an action can spawn or fire up instances in the public cloud, hook those up to your infrastructure through the DNS, offload the load, and then when the load goes away, through the bidirectional integration, Uptime will be notified and it will deprovision those VMs. So this is obviously a very simplistic example of how this very powerful virtualization capability can be made real, but it's here in your back pocket to actually use and actually do proactive outage avoidance. So you can attach action profiles and alert profiles not only to individual metric streams across the physical and virtual stack, but you can also attach it to applications and SLAs as well. With that said, let's move up into those two concepts that we wanted to talk about, which is application availability.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, slow down, Energizer Bunny. I have some questions, okay? Awesome. You are a machine. I love it. I love it. You definitely know this product and you're excited about it. That's awesome. But I do have a question. And of course, I want to throw it out to the audience to ask their questions. So we're going to start, taking questions. As you can tell, Ken he knows a lot about this. So please ask your questions. But we do have one from the audience already that's asking about how much deep monitoring can Uptime do for Citrix XenApp customers. So I saw that you showed the VMware stuff and you showed hundreds of them in there, and then you said you could also import them. What do you do for Citrix admins?
Yeah, currently for Citrix, what we do is ask you to deploy our WMI agentless monitoring into the virtual workloads and into the host, and we can get full spectrum monitoring of all the services that run inside the virtual workloads, as well as the performance of the main host. We get similar visibility of what I've shown you in the Solaris and the AIX stacks to what we've seen here today. And that's simply a reflection of the maturity of the hypervisors coming from VMware, coming from IBM, of course, and coming from Sun. Now, that's not to say that Zen will not create an API that will allow us to get visibility into those, get the same kind of hypervisor visibility into those platforms, but currently there's just no way for us to hook into that.
What about not Zen Server, but Zen App, or as we know it, as I know it, MetaFrame or Presentation Server, their server-based computing solution?
For that, actually, again, we would use the WMI monitoring for the host and for the application environment. And we do have some plugins that give us performance-based metrics for the hosted apps as well. So in terms of number of sessions, in terms of people, in terms of performance and latency. So we do have some plugins for those environments as well.
Perfect. I'm going to keep going with a couple questions so we can get to these while they're still relevant before you get too far ahead. Awesome. Sure. Can Uptime monitor availability on a web page, such as monitoring the XenApp web interface login?
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic question, right? And I kind of glossed over this because of the time constraints. As you can probably tell, as you said, I'm an Energizer Bunny. I could talk about this product for 3 hours.
And I love it.
But here we do have a variety of plugins that allow us to do web service checks. So for something like the example that you gave, I would use the web services check or basic HTTP check to actually allow Uptime's monitoring station to reach out to that console, log in, get the response time by presetting all of the preconditions that we expect to be set, go out, get the response, validate the response time as well, and put that into the Uptime database. Now, if your user wants to take that a step further or to the next level, we actually have a web application transaction monitor that allows you to actually record full web-based transactions with a web transaction recorder, and have that script replay from Uptime over and over and actually simulate an end-user transaction. So that's another option for you as well. And here you can see the recorder running, and that's definitely a way to get at that metric as well.
Perfect. I have a couple more. We'll get to them real quick. Make sure I don't read the same one. Okay. How do you combine the metrics from different sources, or from different sources and specify the logic in an action profile?
That's a fantastic question. So what you actually do is by service, so if I actually view a service, you can see how we layer the action profiles together for any condition. So if I actually go up to, so there's 3 levels, like I was saying. At the service level, any metric can drive an action profile or alert profile. And you can have an unlimited number of them stacking together. So here you can see the association. But to your user's question, how do we combine that together? Well, I was just actually going to get to that. All of these metrics coming from the different platforms really are best articulated as an application service. So you want to actually attach an action profile or an alert profile to the application object itself, because Uptime differentiates between the different combinations of metrics in terms of whether they're impacting application availability or whether they're impacting application performance. So each one of these boxes is actually thresholding a different set of metrics. And what you'll see in Uptime is that if I actually go into an application, for instance, and I'm just going to click in here and get an application, you can see that for a given application, I can immediately attach alert profiles and action profiles. So here you can see the different actions and different levels, responses that we want to do in response to an application outage. Now, combining that together even further, if I want responses to be a combination of multiple applications and multiple metrics, I can actually attach those directly to the SLA, associate them with the SLA level, and start to drill down from service level objectives to automated healing actions. So that's how we associate or map from business logic and business deliverables to automated actions and automated alerts. I hope that answers the user's question.
Yep. If it does not answer the user's questions, please just go ahead and ask, follow-up questions. Please feel free. So we have a couple more that we want to get to. If you click a user's tab, what protocol is being used to receive that data?
If I look at the users tab, did they say?
Yes, a users tab.
Okay, well, I'm on the users tab, so I'm going to try to answer this question. I'm not sure I understand it 100%, but from a protocol perspective, displaying this data is just straight through our web service, and obviously it's HTTP. But synchronizing the data, we actually use the LDAP interface of Active Directory to map the distinguished names to the user roles and privileges within Uptime. And the synchronization of the users to the Active Directory or LDAP repository is done by our user authentication setup. So if I actually go in here and edit the configuration, you'll immediately see that we use the sanction protocols for communicating with those repositories and do a full sync up. So we actually do use the correct Active Directory protocol to allow for synchronization. So here you can see that. We do sync. You notice we can really drill down into detail for Active Directory mapping and all of the right protocols, but I'm not sure that would be, if someone wants to drill into this, they can feel free to contact us offline, but this can, as you can see, right, straight up LDAP and Active Directory protocols.
Perfect. Okay, well, guys out there in the audience, please continue to feel free to ask questions. And Ken, as you can tell, this guy's awesome. He knows this stuff. So, if you have any questions at all, ask him, because we're going to get good answers. I love it. So, Ken, back to you. Please continue.
Great. Well, those were great questions, and we really appreciate them. And they actually dovetail nicely into what we were going to show you anyways. Back to the application screen. This is where the rubber hits the road, because at the end of the day, a user, or when users call us, they're going to say, well, our application's, 3 calls, right? One is, we love you guys, the application's working perfectly, our productivity's up, and I'm sure everybody on the DABCC episodes, you get those calls all the time. But call number 2, which is just the application is just bombing on me, or the application is slow. And what we want to be able to do is understand as a team, as an IT operations team, what is driving that without having to run hundreds of point tools across the physical virtual cloud stack, and without really kind of fishing for the answer. We want a system that already has all the metrics there and can tell us proactively, yep, the e-commerce web service is down. We know that you're calling about that. And guess what? When I drill down, I can see exactly what's feeding into the monitoring solution. So, there's no real finger pointing. I don't have to say, well, I think we never had this problem before we virtualized, or it's always the Oracle guy, it's always the network guy. We don't have to play that game anymore. It's not hot potatoes. We know exactly what the problem is. We're having a DNS name resolution problem here right now. Name service team is on it, network team is on it, and AD team is on it as well. And guess what? It's going to get solved. They've been notified, and proactive automated actions are also firing on the background. So there's so many dimensions to what I've just said, right? What is the value of knowing exactly what's driving your application outage across what's becoming a much more complex data center stack immediately? And what's the value of being able to report on that in less than 3 clicks? Because we've really gone from saying, how do we get metrics across this entire stack, to saying, how do we use that data? So watch me use the data and count the number of clicks I'm doing. So I've done 2 clicks right now, and here's my third one for my 3-click report. Being able to associate the metrics this way across the entire stack means that we can produce reports that really tell us and our stakeholders how we're doing at the application level, and are able to articulate throughout our teams. And it's not about blame and shame, right? We're not blaming and shaming people, but if there is a certain part of the stack that's not performing, whether it's hypervisor-related, application-related, database-related, we can see those contributing factors. Not only that, being able to report to all of our stakeholders that the application across the stack is available at a certain number, that's gold, because we know, regardless of the stack that we use to deliver things, sometimes it's not a technology problem. Sometimes it's a human perception issue. So when people have an outage in their virtual application or in whatever it is they happen to be running, they're going to gut check themselves first if they know that we're typically delivering 100% uptime. They're going to say, well, am I on the VPN? Is my wireless working? Before they do the knee-jerk reaction of turning to other people and saying, this system never works. What's going on, right? Internally, for our teams, at the end of the month, if I'm able to say, hey guys, what's going on with WebSphere team? You guys are really, bringing us down here on our availability. Give me a report stat. That's pretty useful. If it's proactive maintenance that's the problem in any of those stacks, you can look at it. And if it's anything upstream or downstream of our stack, like a third-party ISP or data service, we know that that's the problem, and we can articulate that without pointing fingers at virtual team, database team, network team, or any of that. So pretty powerful. Taking this a step further, because Uptime is collecting all of your performance and availability metrics, we want to be able to take our SLAs and instantly relate them over a compliance period. How are we doing right now? What's driving each one of those service level objectives, against our virtual, physical, or cloud-based infrastructure? And we want to be able to instantly, with a single click, generate reports that tell us whether it is an infrastructure availability issue that's causing it, or real-world performance of our system on any platform, any operating system. Is it a time of day outage? Is it because we've got more users coming online? Is it because the hardware is just, falling apart and we need more budget to replace that? Well, Uptime's going to give you that kind of information in a comprehensive SLA report, so that if someone's going to ask me how many 9s we're delivering today, I have the answer. And if someone's asking me for more 9s than I can deliver today, my answer is, thank you for increasing my budget, because every 9 you want is not free, requires tenfold increase in budget. So this is the kind of capability Uptime gives you at a high level. I'd like to take you quickly, I know I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to take you quickly through the evolution of reporting to support your physical to virtual conversion and your virtual capacity planning and workload planning once those initiatives take off and you're very proactive. So at a very low level, you understand that Uptime can collect massive amounts of platform data. Well, in 3 clicks, what I'm going to show you is the ability to make that data real for us to actually do capacity planning in the physical world. In 3 clicks, I've generated an enterprise CPU utilization report that's going to justify my physical to physical conversion and my physical to virtual consolidation project. Because right now, as is typical with all of our clients and prospects, we have a very low overall utilization across all of our physical platforms. I have a number like that. I've obviously got a lot of heaters in the data center, want to start consolidating, saving on power, saving on cooling, saving on space. That's the first step. What are we using today? Step number 2 in the evolution is, what can I virtualize immediately? What is the low-hanging fruit? Based on performance metrics and the target platform that I've got, whether that be to x86 virtualization, Solaire zones and containers, power-based titanium alpha, I want to be able to say, you have all the data, Uptime. Tell me what systems I should or should not be virtualizing. And tell me what probability I am going to be successful at virtualizing those physical platforms. So here we're going to see Uptime evaluate all those platforms, give me only compatible systems, give me a full green star that says, let's virtualize this net right now. This is a good candidate based on the metrics. 10-to-1 consolidation ratio, great candidate. Half green star based on one or more metrics. You want to be careful because we will not be able to achieve maximum virtualization density to the target platform. And a white star, which just tells you don't virtualize this. You're going to kill something. Right now, the only thing that Uptime doesn't do is tell you whether something is politically correct to virtualize. Now, we've been trying to find a developer that can put that kind of insight into Uptime. When you guys have ideas for how to do that, you let us know. Obviously, there's due diligence, last mile due diligence with every kind of report here. But the question to ask yourself is, how would you do this across all of your platforms today? All right? Now, continuing the evolution, remember my talk about Uptime being there with you every step of the way. As you virtualize, how do you get visibility into how your clustered environment is being used and whether we're hitting the ceiling for performance? Well, Uptime with a single screen gives you a blue line that tells you where your headroom is across the physical cluster, breaks the utilization by physical box in that cluster, and breaks the utilization down by virtual instance as well across all of the different metric silos. So we've got memory, we've got workload, we've got disk, all of the stuff that we want to be looking at in our virtual environment. But more importantly, as you mature, so your virtualization task force is going to be looking at this on a weekly basis, we want to know that we're moving the bar forward, that we're not just taking sprawl from the physical domain into the virtual domain. And what that means is that we can get the higher density environments, that we can do the VDI, that we can do the highly clustered web services environment that we all dream about to deliver service-oriented architecture. Well, we want a report that supports that tells us we're going in the right direction. Well, again, VMware infrastructure density report. We want our average density to always be going up. We want to make sure that the loading of our ESX boxes or virtualization platforms are appropriate, that we don't have skewed loading, and that, in fact, the total running workloads across all of our machines are actually increasing. So you notice that the change here, we've gone from talking about how do we gather these detailed hypervisor metrics, which power these reports, to reports that align our teams and really make a difference. And so I want to run one more report here, Doug, if you'll allow me here, of the Incident Priority Report. And this really summarizes the vision for what Uptime is across your physical virtual cloud. And this really takes everything to the next level. Like, this is the next level for infrastructure management. What we need to realize is that hypervisor and virtualization and all of these new models for deploying technology are tools, but they flood us with data. All this new data that Uptime can collect and give you visibility into. And so my analogy that I give is like a jet fighter. Okay, so if the data center is like a jet fighter and virtualization is part of that stack, how do we make sure that we don't get sucked into looking at individual gauges in the cockpit? And Uptime has all of those for you. We can run our profiles and do all that crazy low-level visibility and drill down. But how do we identify the threats that are going to blow us out of the water, that are just going to take us out, just like that jet fighter pilot? And really, with Uptime, we give you that tool. Whether it's in the virtual stack, the cloud, or the physical, what you need to know is what we present in this incident priority quadrant. So downtime's on the left, number of incidents is on the bottom. If there's anything in this quadrant, we're pretty happy about it because there's a low number of incidences and there's a low amount of downtime. So marketing likes to call this the happy place. I think we should be pretty happy about that. Top right quadrant is your virtualization stack, CRM, ERP, any of those systems or individual systems are up here. We need to swarm those, get our teams on it, work with the vendors, get on that and handle it, because you can bet that at the next town hall, somebody's going to put up their hand and say, Exchange is horrible, I can't use it, why aren't we outsourcing it? So back to what Phil was talking about. Top left, all right, we're talking about efficiency and driving downtimes down, mean time to repair, things that happen once a year, right? The fix is easy, remembering that fix every year and ensuring that we have automated healing actions to drive the downtime down, automated alerts that encapsulate the fix that we do every year. That's what we want to be getting to. Down here in this quadrant, it's all about efficiency. If there's problems that are running under the radar, that are mythical 5-minute problems, and your techs are running out and doing that 5 times a day, we want to get a handle on those, get visibility, get to root cause, fix the problem so it doesn't happen, and increase the efficiency of our team. And that all comes back to budget, efficiency, making sure our resources are doing the right things, and all of that good stuff. So this really is why we end on this report typically in the demo. I just wanted to make sure we covered that and open it all up for questions.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. That's perfect. You did a great job. Great job. So, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. And, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. I've always said, I really don't care about time in webinars. We like to keep them right about an hour, but at the same time, we'll always stick around if people have questions. I'm never the first to leave the room, I always say, and never the first to leave the bar. But I actually don't drink unless I go to a conference, and I do. But anyway, so please feel free to ask any questions. So if you do, we'll answer them. And well, perfect. Ken, would you like to, as we wait to see if anyone has any questions, is there anything else you guys? Well, I do have a question myself, and that is, where do people go to learn more information? So. This is a very impressive demo, And if somebody's interested in going ahead and downloading this, what do they need to do?
They need to just hit our website, and there's a giant button there that says download trial right at the top of the screen. Hit that, download the product, and immediately start evaluating literally within 3.5 minutes. In fact, we have an evaluation center which is launching on the site very shortly, and there's a video in there that shows me installing the product right inside of the server in 3.5 minutes. And actually that whole thing, we have resources on the website as well from that download page that tell you exactly what the next steps are to walk you through your product evaluation as well. We're a very proactive organization here. We're very collaborative. If your users are doing that trial and they need more information, they want to talk to a human being, that's what Uptime is about. Solutions architects or engineers like me are available. Our support is available to assist you through that trial. And we really encourage you, because the proof, anyone who's heard me present before or wants to watch my videos on our YouTube channel, I always say the proof is in the pudding, and we really stand by our product that way.
Well, perfect. And what's the URL to that? It's uptimesoftware.com?
It's www.uptimesoftware.com.
Perfect. Okay, we don't have any questions. You did a great job. How do you ask questions when the guy is just absolutely perfect at answering my questions as he's doing it, right? So great job, Ken. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to be with us today to show off the Uptime software suite. This is some cool stuff. So I really enjoyed it myself. I've seen it before, but I always enjoy seeing this. So neat stuff. On that note, let's just go ahead and call this an episode. So again, Ken, I appreciate your time so much today. And also, Phil, thank you so much for taking the time to do the intro with us. We really enjoyed that. So... Well, thank you again. And so everyone out there, definitely check out uptimesoftware.com. Go ahead and download the eval. Like I said, it's only 15 minutes. Throw it on a virtual machine and have some fun playing around with it and see what it finds. So, and if you like it, contact these guys. And if you have any questions, definitely contact them. So on that note, guys, I appreciate your time today. We'll just go ahead and call this an episode, and I'll let you guys get back to work. So thank you so much, everybody.